Cool. Okay, Dr. Billy, question 7. Hi, Dr. Billy and Nick. I'm a single parent of 3-year-old boys and a NICU nurse, so your podcast is valuable to me. Babies who are only 500 grams and not yet breathing on their own are already benefiting from the combined wisdom and teachings, because I can't help but relay everything you tell me to the parents sitting scared and worried in skin to skin with their tiny babies, wondering aloud how they can help their fragile loves. I pass on all the important teachings I've learnt from you. I'm often envious of their positions. They get to go into parenting already armed with your podcast. Lucky babes and parents. Anyway, I've always been very keen and aware of attachment theory, and I have done my very best to have secure attachments to my 3 beautiful boys. I've been attentive to their needs from birth. I've showered them with words of love, but also followed up with being present and attentive. I've played games, taken them to parks, listened to long stories, told long stories, offered cuddles and kisses, sat for hours in kangaroo care when they were babies, provided encouragement when they were trying new things, picked them up when they're physically and emotionally or spiritually hurt. I apologise. I celebrate them. There are many moments that I have missed and could have done better, but I'm confident that I'm hitting the mark 70% of the time. My goal was to never yell, and although I have not been successful, it's always my goal. I've never smacked them. The problem is, all 3 act like they have insecure attachment. My oldest is 12, is depressed and anxious. He's self-harmed and is suicidal. My second is anxious and lashes out and pushes me, and his siblings button so hard you might think he actually hates us. Button up so hard. And my third is only 4 and already showing signs of anxiety. All 3 boys sleep with me in bed and have since birth. I always loved it, and I've even told myself that co-sleeping is another way of building secure attachment. However, now the 2 oldest are desperate to leave my room, so I have set them up a bedroom for both of them. They have awesome beds and sheets and posters, and loved in special trinkets to decorate, and love to just put special trinkets to decorate the bedrooms. However, they can't sleep in them. My 12-year-old tries every couple of months, and sometimes will do 2 nights in a row and then come back to my room. He won't try again for 2 months or more. My middle son, 10 years old, won't even start the night in his room. When we talk about it, they both just say they are scared. Sometimes they can't articulate further than that. Sometimes it's worries such as burglars or monsters. Just to note, we live in a beautiful area and we have never been robbed or even know anyone that has. Where am I going wrong? Why do they have such tricky mental health issues, and why can't I get them in their own rooms? Is it due to poor attachment, or indeed too attached?
What an amazing advocate for the podcast to be like, just sharing it with new parents. So yeah, that's very humbling for us. Firstly, before we get into the depth of it, do you know what kangaroo care is?
No, what's that?
Mate, you should be their ambassador.
What's kangaroo care?
It's the importance of skin to skin early on in Bub's life. And so, yeah, because I know baby cuddles are one of your favourite things.
Oh, the best.
So, yeah, and there is evidence that builds strong attachment. So it's great that this professional is in that space supporting that and advocating for that. That's why there's a risk, not a certainty, but a risk of insecure attachment in bubs that are like whisked off and don't get a lot of contact or time with their parents. We've got some amazing ones. An amazing question that I'll probably include coming up for the next reflection episode on attachment about that. So, yeah, there's, what a tough time it must be for this parent. But probably the most important bit of my answer is affirming that you have created a very safe harbour from an attachment perspective for your kids. Kids who are having emotional difficulties with anxiety and lashing out, externalising behaviours, is often a sign that the environment and the relationships they're in are safe.
Okay.
As we've talked about, the avoidant is the more worrying. That's what the evidence would show us in terms of predicting mental illness, where they withdraw. They don't see relationships and attachment figures as a place to express their needs. So these kids are probably all feeling very safe at home, and that's evident by the sleeping setup. The bit about attachment is that just because you have secure attachment doesn't guarantee you won't have mental illness, and just because you have insecure attachment doesn't guarantee you will. What this parent is experiencing is probably maybe even the youngest child is sitting within clinical range of anxiety. Now, they're doing the phenomenal part in attachment of creating a safe harbour. This parent's knocking that out of the park. The bit about attachment that is sometimes harder to do and harder to think about is, how do I make sure they confidently explore the world? And these kids are struggling with that in their sleep, in their anxiety, their fears and worries are overwhelming them. You know, self-harm and suicide is something that we are seeing, unfortunately, increasingly in the community, which, you know, the podcast probably needs to go back to that, but the mental health, first aid and developmental trauma episodes are really helpful, as well as co-regulation and a few others. But yeah, this is the bit that can be trickier with, for especially attentive parents like this, is how do I let them explore the world safely and securely and increase their abilities and stretch? And these kids are a little bit stuck there. And probably, I think as clinicians and professionals in this space, we are the most vulnerable to not seeking help with others. And I'm like that. I should probably be seeing a therapist, tell myself I don't have time, I should make time. But we are not great at reaching out for help from other professionals. And this parent sounds like they're doing an amazing job, but I would seek help, not because the kids need to sleep in their own rooms, but just because, you know, they might need to be functioning a little bit better than they are and exploring their world a little bit more confidently. And that part can be hard in attachment. I think it's probably easier for us. We've got little kids that you can watch them and you go, cool, they're stuck on me. How about we go and play with the, you know, how about we go and play pass the parcel together at the party? It gets harder when they're teenagers because so much of it happens out of our sight and out of our support. You're experiencing this now. You know, Winnie's at school without you a lot of the time. You don't have visibility. I know you can't scaffold support. All of that stuff is hard.
Yeah.
Teenagers, it gets even harder. But yeah, this parent is, you know, doing an amazing job at one big component of attachment. And, you know, you don't need to invest more time and energy into the safe harbour. What you probably would think about is, and maybe getting some external support on this, is how do I help them confidently and successfully, you know, go out and explore the world and be courageous, novelty, new things, feel confident, you know, in their ability to engage with others, do all those things. That's the bit that can be hard.
What might some of those examples sort of be?
Yeah, so where they're stuck, I'm a bit like this professional, like the sleep stuff, and there actually is evidence that co-sleeping can be a powerful component of attachment. So I don't care about that. But if the parent's like, I'm not sleeping, that's a time when we need to think about how they do it. But I would be thinking more about their functioning with their peers, how are they going to school, all those things. A lot of kids who are really anxious will hold, and then they'll come home and really struggle. The trick with kids that are anxious in those environments is you need to build their capacity to understand and recognise the signs of anxiety in themselves, validate them, but then give them the ability to have coping mechanisms. And often that is built, as I've said before, with us in the safest environment, with the safest relationships first. The last place they achieve it is at school on their own when they're about to get up in front of their peers. So build it, you know, build the capacity in them in those environments and then gently extend them into newer environments, but successfully. The success is the key, and as small a step as it needs to be. You know, that's the thing. We play the long game with all these kids.
Yep.
We don't go, by this stage you need to be sleeping in your own room, and I think there'll be a target that's better than sleeping in your own room for these kids. And I think that will find that when they achieve that, which this parent will, they will be sleeping in their own rooms confidently, and because that's what they want to do. And so, it's a really important one about all of us probably need to feel comfortable in reaching out for external support, including me.
Okay.
This podcast is brought to you by Guiding Growing Minds, a social enterprise that aims to give all children the best opportunity to reach their potential and succeed in living rich and meaningful lives.